yeah, I think everyone is excited to hear what you are working on, and I don't want to spoil anything, so I leave the stage to you. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you, Stefan. So I started or found out about Bevy like 2 years ago by now, I think. And I really fell in love with Bevy and the ECS and Rust and everything and the community, of course. But like many people, I quickly noticed that for the audio stuff, there were still quite some things missing. And I started. So, for example, you have basic spatial audio, but you there's no effects that are supported out of the gate. So you could implement them, but it's not easy. And yeah, like many people use Bevy Kira Audio, and which also it's great. It's already a lot better, but still no effects like reverb and EQ. For example, EQ is nice if you want to have this underwater effect. And back then there was no audio working group yet. So I was kind of seeing that especially compared to something like rendering, like not a lot of people were pushing the audio forward with Bevy. So I started looking around, and first, because I don't know much about, or back then I didn't know much about game audio. So I started looking around, and I first wanted to look at like what's the state of the art. So I quickly came across Fmod, which is an audio engine, which is used in many games. And Fmod is very nice because it's artist friendly. It comes with like a whole studio that you can use. It has adaptive audio support. So, for example, let's say you have a tree somewhere and you can hear the birds chirping. And if you get closer to the tree, they don't just get louder, but you also start hearing like more birds and different types. That kind of stuff is really easy to set up with Fmod. And it also has spatial audio basics, of course. And then I started looking and found that someone made a C bindings and wrapper for Fmod, so you can use it in Rust. And then there was also someone who made a Bevy Fmod, so you can use this wrapper with Bevy. And I contacted, so I started using this, but I noticed it was a bit bare bones at the time. There was still a lot of setup required, so I contacted the author, and luckily they were willing to work together on this. So now we made it really easy for people to implement spatial audio with Fmod. So for the camera, just add a spatial listener bundle, and then for the audio source, first you kind of load the samples, create an audio source, and then pass that to a spatial audio bundle on the the emitter of the sound. And then I'll actually show you what that looks like and sounds like. So if I turn up the volume, so this is the built-in. So what you're seeing here is Fmod, and then here's the built-in Fmod spatializer. So you can notice if I move towards the audio source, it's louder, and if I look away from it, you can hear like where the sound is coming from. So let me move away a bit, and then it's like really easy to add effects, whatever you want. You can do it while the game is running. It's very nice. However, there's still, I was not yet completely happy. There's some things missing. For example, let me actually turn it down real quick. So you have this environment, but it does not sound like the environment yet. And if I, for example, move through this wall, I can still hear the sound. And another thing, which is really interesting, is that, so right now, if I look left and right, you can hear where the sound is coming from, left and right, but up and down, there's no difference. But it is actually possible. And that's using the HRTF, which is the head-related transfer function, which is the effect that's commonly used to create this binaural audio effect. So let me show you a quick example of what that sounds like. And you have to notice that, or it could be good to know that this HRTF, it's unique to everyone. So if you don't hear it immediately, that's fine. It could take some getting used to. So there you could, I hope you could hear it. Hopefully there's not too much delay between the video and the audio, but as the object is getting below or above you, you can actually hear where it's coming from. It's a really nice effect, which currently not supported by Fmod. So, still looking around, and then I found out about Steam Audio. And there's a very common misconception with Steam Audio. People think it's an audio engine, but it's actually just a library of audio effects and the simulations that come with them. And for this, actually really nice for us, because that means it's game engine independent and audio engine independent. So we could actually try to integrate this with Bevy. And just if you're curious, there are also some other similar libraries like this. But for example, Resonance Audio, it seems kind of archived, it's not being updated. And then there's MetaXR Audio, but that's closed source, and that's going to play a role later. So yeah, very basically how Steam Audio works is that the audio engine will provide the samples, the audio samples, and then those get filtered by Steam Audio, and those filters, their parameters are then adjusted by the simulations whose inputs come from the game engine. So Steam Audio has a C interface, and there were people that wrote Rust bindings for it. So I was able to try to integrate this with Bevy. First, I tried using the Bevy native audio. I was following this decodable example, and I got it working for a single audio source and a single object in the scene. But this decodable interface, it's not really meant to create an audio effect. So it's very open-ended. So while it was possible, the code was scaling really badly. It was really a lot of boilerplate. Also, my Rust skills back then weren't as good. So then I noticed that Steam Audio had a Fmod integration ready to go. So that's nice, because then this integration is already handling a lot of the audio processing. And the only thing you have to do is from the game side, supply all the inputs and do the simulations on the geometry. So I got quite a bit of that working, and I'll show you a little demo of that. So you can see how changing the environment actually affects the sound, and it's a very easy way to make the audio really immersive really quickly. Here's one more example. So I was working on this, and it took a lot of time to integrate these features, because you're working with this C interface, and it's not always the easiest. And then at the same time, Steam Audio got open sourced. It's very nice to see a company do something like this. But I looked into it, and 31,000 lines of code. And also noticed that, as the code complexity went up, the amount of comments went down, and the amount of tests went down, and the variable names became like X, Y, and T. It's like just really difficult to read. And also like the organization of the code base, it's just one big list of files. So it was pretty daunting. So I was like, yeah, I'll just continue working with the C bindings if that works. But the more and more I continued, the more I noticed that I kept running into different kinds of issues. First I would run into issues with the bindings that I was using. I was like combining the best parts of two different bindings that people wrote for Rust. So I was running into issues there. I was running into issues where the documentation from Valve was not clear or was just missing information. And I also had issues where, after I fixed all of these things, I would try it on Linux, or the other way around, try it on Windows, and then I would run into another crash. All these were all like memory violations, so really difficult to debug. So it felt like the surface area of things I had to worry about was like growing really quickly by using the C interface, because there was still a lot of features to integrate. For example, in this demo that I showed, everything was being done in real time. So bouncing all the rays, that takes a lot of computation power. You want to be able to bake it and do that kind of stuff. So slowly I started thinking, it would be nice if there was a port of Steam Audio completely written in Rust. I don't want to be that guy. It's like, oh, we should rewrite it in Rust for no reason. But after months of agony, it started to become kind of appealing. So I started doing it and made some progress. So if you want to check out the repo, it's right here. It's still kind of messy because I'm still following the same structure as they do. But yeah, anyways, right now I'm testing with Kira, which is a Rust audio engine, and that makes it really easy to test out the effects, because remember, it's not an audio engine, so I actually need to work together with an audio engine, like implement the effect to actually hear it. So let me tell you a bit about how Steam Audio works, how we are integrating this. So I think to put it really basically, you can split it up in three major parts. One is the HRTF, the binaural audio I talked about earlier. It's not in the slide, but I also haven't gotten to it yet. And then there's the direct effect. So imagine drawing a straight line between the listener and the audio source. And direct effect is everything you can get from that straight line. So the distance gives you the distance attenuation, and also like the left and right panning, or if there's an object in between, then it should be, the volume should go down, all that kind of stuff. And that's then driven by the simulation, which is driven by the game engine. And then there's the reflect effect. So that's everything that's not in a straight line. So that's all the rays that are bouncing around and then giving you this feeling that you're in a cave or outside, that kind of thing. So the first thing I'm working on is the direct effect, because that's the most simple thing to do. And it's also a lot of kind of like a basic building block in the Steam Audio thing. So I got a proof of concept working of the direct effect integrated with Bevy and Kira. So it's all pure Rust, and it feels great. And I was integrating into with Bevy using a Kira audio engine that the audio working group was making. So it was like an experimental audio engine. I took a bit of a gamble by integrating it with that because I wasn't sure yet if that was gonna become the main engine for Bevy. Eventually, they moved away from Kira, so I kind of had to put that project to the side, or that integration. I was also thinking about integrating it with Bevy Kira Audio, because that's currently, I think, the most popular audio solution with Bevy, at least the most popular open source one. But sadly, it's missing support for Kira effects. So even though I have it implemented as a Kira effect, Bevy Kira Audio does not support it yet. So if someone wants to tackle that, that would be awesome. But right now, focus on porting or integrating the direct effect with Fmod, which is also going quite well. And I think that's also, so the reason I'm focusing on Fmod here is I think a lot of people were trying to use the best audio engine that don't want to run into any missing features. They're more likely to be using Fmod anyways, or already. So I thought it would be nice to kind of add some value there. And recently I got some stuff working. So, and I think that's also like the first Fmod plugin. So the plugin is the Steam Audio effect. And I think it's the first Fmod plugin that's written in Rust. If I'm wrong, please correct me. So let me show you that. So here we have the built-in spatializer from Fmod. Then here I can add a custom phonon spatializer. So that's my work. It's still a bit messy at the moment. I have to do the styling on this and make it a bit more user-friendly. But here it is. So it sounds kind of the same right now. Let me turn up the volume a bit. So we got the song is fading out. We have to wait a second. There we go. So we have the left and right panning, and then the distance attenuation. I actually forgot to enable that. There we go, distance attenuation. And then I also have a demo here, which shows the so with distance, there's this air absorption effect that Steam Audio does. So the further away a sound is, the higher frequencies will like lower in volume. So that kind of gives this pretty realistic effect of like modeling the atmosphere. And another thing is if I move into another room, it becomes quiet, because now I have the audio occlusion. So it's checking if there's any objects between the listener and the audio source. And I was gonna have another demo here to kind of show like the volumetric audio occlusion with like arbitrary geometry, which can also move around, but I didn't have the time to get to it. But you just have to believe me that it works. So yeah, that's quite a lot of things that I was able to work on. And let's see, what is the current progress? So with just the direct effect, that from the 31,000 lines of code, that's now 2.7K translated. And that turns into 2.1K lines of code in Rust in my case. So of course, with C++, you have a lot of header files. So I think that's making the biggest difference here. I did notice that with Rust, sometimes things are a bit more verbose because they're doing stuff that's maybe not always as safe. So with Rust, you have to kind of work around that. And then there's 10K lines that I've kind of crossed out and said like, I'm not gonna translate those to the Rust version, and that's for a few different reasons. So of that 10K, there's 7.7K that's like an API layer. I think the reason they have this API layer is to allow Steam Audio to be used with other programming languages. But I think since Steam Audio already fulfills that job, then for my Rust version, I don't need it. So I'm gonna try and see if I can get away with that, because that's a lot of code. And then 1.6K is I've replaced by using Glam and D-Array. So yeah, it's simple. Add the dependency and you're done. And then another 700 lines for Perry for the raycasting and that kind of stuff. All right, so that said, there's still a lot of stuff to do. The binaural effect I talked about, reflect effects, and the baking stuff. I would also like to see the Bevy Kira audio integration, but for me it's a bit lower priority. Yeah, and then lots of testing, benchmarking, and code review. So if you saw something you thought would be interesting to help out, please contact me on Discord, IXML. I would love to work together. I can help you get started, get oriented in this massive repo of theirs. And yeah, I think that's about it. So let me know if there are any questions.
Jillis, thank you so much.
Yes.
That's a daunting task to port such a thing to Rust.
Yeah.
I think we still have some echo from your audio. You were right.
Let's see.
But yeah, we have a bunch of questions. It's going to be interesting. We probably have to open some of them up for the panel in the end. But the highest voted for is, will you continue using Fmod, or are you going all in with Kira now? I believe this question was answered before you kind of tapped onto that in the slides.
Yeah, so I think, so one reason I'm going for Fmod at the moment is because I know, it's industry standard, so I know I'm not gonna run into any missing features that I need to implement all this stuff. I'm still using Kira when I'm working on the core of Steam Audio stuff, because then it's an easy way to test things out. But yeah, for integrating it with Bevy, it's this issue. And I kind of looked at it, but I'm not familiar with Bevy Kira Audio. And from what I saw, just at a quick glance, it's quite a fundamental change to the crate to add support for these effects. So yeah, but
okay,
yeah, it would be cool.
I think that was actually also a question, like what's the effort to actually add these effects to Kira?
Yeah. So currently, so Kira has a concept of tracks, and then you add the effects onto the tracks. And I think the issue is that Bevy Kira Audio, it has a concept of tracks, but it doesn't actually use the Kira tracks. So you cannot yet add the effects to it.
Okay, but it's really just the glue essentially that misses that, right? Kira knows how it works, but it's just the Bevy wrapper on top that doesn't. I mean, it sounds solvable for someone that wants to have a nice entryway into contributing here.
Yeah, exactly. And I think once this issue is solved, then from my side, it will be like maybe a week of work to actually integrate it with Bevy Kira Audio. Because that part is not too bad.
But I guess it makes sense to just keep supporting both anyways.
Exactly.
If you start being able to support Kira,
Yeah, and then at some point, I'm hoping that the Bevy audio working group, they're working on a new audio engine, which has like, I think the main goal is to have like really good, how do you say, integration with the ECS. And I'm also kind of pushing them to add support for custom effects from the beginning.
Yeah,
I think that would be great.
I mean, that sounds definitely like something you should be involved so that it's workable for you right from the get-go. The next question is from Grandpa asking, back in my days we had sound cards. Is that all of this is all of this mixing of tons of channels happening in CPU these days?
Yeah, I think it's all CPU based. I'm too young to know about these hardware sound cards. I know it's a thing, but yeah, no, this is all CPU. And then, of course, when you're doing the simulations with the geometry, right now it's CPU based, but I'm hoping in the future to do also some GPU based stuff.
Is that something Steam Audio does?
Yes. I think especially if you're making a AAA game, it still takes a lot of power to do all these ray traces and all the bouncing. So you kind of want to either do it on the GPU or you do it on the CPU and you bake it beforehand.
Yeah. Is this port a lot of unsafe? Is another question.
Yeah, so right now for the core of Steam Audio that I've ported, I've used 0 unsafe. So that's good news, I think. And I've been really, enjoying just working with Rust. It feels really nice. But then, I started doing this fmod integration, and I had to work with the fmod C bindings. And then, of course, that caused a lot of issues and bugs that are just crazy. That, one day it will work, and then start my computer the next day and it doesn't work. And then, good luck debugging that without any debug symbols or anything like that.
Yeah. That actually brings me to another point. In terms of platform support, this is all going to be cross-platform, I assume, right?
Yeah. So currently, so if we ignore fmod for a second, I've not written anything platform specific. At the same time, I don't have much experience with web, so maybe there are some pitfalls that I'm not aware of. And then for the fmod stuff, fmod supports a lot of platforms, including web. But then recently, I saw like a bounty of $1,000 someone posted to get fmod working with Rust and web. So apparently, it's not trivial to add support for that.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
No, I think it's there's always these worlds colliding of mscript and C++ stuff and how to make that communicate with our WebAssembly export.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just a temporary issue until Bevy has their own audio engine or you make Kira work, right?
Exactly. Yeah, that's also something that I really hope to see, that in the end we have just a fully open source solution, but yeah, just as great as these industry standards.
Yeah. So I would say this is the last question before we open up the panel. Is Steam Audio still actively maintained and extended by Valve? Is it moving? Is it a moving target for you to translate?
Yeah, so they're still doing updates. Their latest or biggest update was when they released what's it called, Half-Life Alyx. So a VR game. So they really needed to up their game in terms of immersive audio. And even I had like a tiny contribution because I mentioned the documentation that was sometimes lacking a bit. So I wrote an issue about this once, and after like 5 months, they did actually acknowledge it and fix it. So that was pretty good to see.
Nice.
Yeah, so they're still working on it, and I think they're currently transitioning because they went open source, of course. So I think they're transitioning from their internal version control to GitHub now, but I think we're going to see more activity on there.
Yeah. Yeah, I can imagine. Okay, cool. Jillis, there's a bunch of more questions, but I would pull up the other speakers and we can go through the rest together. Maybe there's some
Yes.
comments and contributions by the others. I would still want to thank you for your presentation. It's super exciting to have this project going on in Rust. I'm really hoping that at some point people will use the Rust Steam audio instead of the actual one because of its safety guarantees.
The dream.
But yeah, then we also have the whole conversation about consoles, right? So that's a whole different can of worms. But it's a really cool project, and I can't wait to see this working with Kira, because then I personally can at least use it on the web as well.
Yeah.